Oh, hi. I didn't realize I was on. I was too interested in my can of water. Natural spring water. Don't bottle it, says can it. I'm not really sure what that does for the environment. Yeah, but it has this really interesting lid, and I'm trying to figure out how to open it more. Hi, hello, welcome. This is a very special Tuesday night edition of TNS. As you guys might know, we are doing this new thing called TNS Live, which airs 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday nights. We start off here on YouTube, and then we move over to this new platform called Rokfin, rokfin.com/Nomiki. And we invite on special guests. We have completely unfiltered conversations. I think that's the politically correct way of saying it. On Tuesday nights, where we talk about all sorts of things, whether it's exclusive interviews with folks like Stephen Donziger or tonight's guest, which is Kenzo Shibata. We're going to have a real deep, real chat. Yeah, brand that one, about movements and union organizing, and specifically like how trauma influences how we organize and what type of organizing and how directed it is. And I'm sure many people watching this are fully aware of the kind of trauma that can affect movements and have probably felt it personally. I know I have. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with Kenzo. But we're going to start off now. I kind of want to talk about, we're going to talk about some climate stuff too, because I'm here in Scotland right now for, in anticipation, the COP conference is coming up, but there's some other conferences that are leading up to COP, and we're here covering them to see like, okay, are you guys really taking climate seriously? Or are you just telling us to use canned water, which is what I have here. That's what I got. I think that'll solve it, guys. This is how we're going to fix climate change. Canned water. All right, let's bring in Kenzo.
Nomiki, how's it going? Enjoying the metal water? Does it taste metallic?
No, it's just I'm so is this, if you have a glass bottle, because it says like don't bottle it, but I use glass bottles, okay? And I use reusable bottles, okay? But like, how is a metal bottle or metal can better than? And also, let's be real. If we're sitting here debating this and not debating how we're going to torch Joe Manchin's house if he doesn't infrastructure bill, then we are not focusing on the right things. That's just my opinion, and I think it's a really great lead up into how to strategically organize movements and organize like people in general. Maybe it's 1:00 in the morning here, okay, Kenzo?
it's only 7 here, so I'm kind of a spring chicken. I'll be all right.
All right, so Kenzo Shibata, I should say. Shibata is the host of the Kenzo Shibata Show, or is it Kenzo Show? Kenzo
Shibata Show, and then on Twitch, I do Meet the Left.
Yes, which is great. I love that. I've been on that show.
You're doing this Sunday, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's gonna be
fun.
What
did I put down?
We got the Beef Country podcast coming on. They're just amazing young feminist women, queer, and just badasses. They remind me of the Riot Girls of the 90s, but they're doing it now. So I want you to meet them and fall in love with them, because I think they're doing this whole like identity politics thing very well. Like they understand the world isn't quite on the same page as some of us who are super woke. But they also they talk a lot about mental illness. And, I want to talk about mental illness and trauma and how that relates to organizing, because that's a project that I'm working on, not just, not just like in my writing, but like I'm literally like I'm now in a full-time psych program. I had a mental break right before the school year started, and I had to teach
like in September.
Actually August, like
August year, started meaning not the previous
year. This past August.
Because wait, hang on a second. Folks need you're a teacher. We left out a very big part of this, is that you are a teacher in Chicago, and you've been an organizer in your labor in your union, and pushed back against some like really powerful people, including the mayor. In Chicago,
I am on my Twitter account is literally on her shit list that she sent to the Chicago Police Department. So that's why people have called me Chicago's most dangerous podcaster, because my Twitter account's on the CPD files now. And all I do is, say my truth, and they don't like that because they have their own version of the truth that they really want us to buy.
Of course. So you were saying, I didn't mean to cut you off. You
Oh,
were
no
you were
worries.
talking about your break.
Yeah, so I already had depression, but I didn't quite know the roots of it. I was never really diagnosed with anything. I never took like on a serious therapeutic program. I just would do
Mhm.
talk therapy, like, our friend Tony Soprano. But, like him, he was able to use therapy to his own means and not
Mm.
necessarily to dig deep into the real problems he has.
Mm.
And I'm rewatching that too now, and I'm seeing parallels because
I've
that
been
show
reading your
is
Twitter, man.
it is so saturated with mental illness
Yeah.
and the nuclear family, which, by the way, Nomiki, I want to thank you for opening my eyes as one of the people that has been talking about alternative ways of having families. And this is all tied into the
Mhm.
mental illness and the organizing, I
Mhm.
promise. And Jamie Peck was another person too.
Yeah.
So like my
Appreciate
nuclear
that.
family's trying out some new things, I'll say. And it's been very affirming because one of the things I've discovered in this psych program is that my gender is kind of it's not fully formed, and I'm still working on it. So I identify as queer now.
That's
Um,
great. Because you announced this publicly, like in a
yeah.
wider space, larger space yesterday on National Coming Out Day, right?
I on Sunday I did on Meet
Sunday,
the
sorry.
Left.
I don't know what day it is.
Oh no, I'm just saying, like, on Sunday was the first time I did on my
Mhm.
stream, which, smaller audience than my Twitter account. But I got so affirmed, and I have to admit that I bought myself a bottle of Moet, and some nice Kind Buds to get me through coming out to 100 people at that point, at least. Um, and it was a celebration too. And then I didn't realize it, but then yesterday was National Coming Out Day.
Mhm.
My timing was not planned at all, but I'm flipping. I am on a social media diet. I only look at Twitter at night now, and I'm flipping through, and all these people are coming out. And I decided that I had to come out to 21,000 people at that moment. And I just turned off my phone and just went to bed. I couldn't sleep, but I just did not want to look at Twitter all night.
Yeah.
And then I woke up to like the most kind, most generous, most authentic messages. And a few people have sent me messages saying that they wanted more information in the program that I'm in because they're
Mm.
struggling with similar issues.
Wow.
And so I, today, a lot of my day today was texting back people and sending them information. Some people who are struggling with their gender identity are coming to me also.
Mhm.
And that is kind of always the way I've handled, even Rahm Emanuel says, never let a crisis go to waste. Like,
Yeah.
my gender crisis could be a educational moment for a lot of people. And I got some messages from some former students of mine who identified as queer back then, saying, like, because I was the straight teacher who all the queer kids loved,
Mhm.
and they would come out to me, and like I'm getting all these nice messages from them saying, like, and I remind them that, like, no, not only did I help them, they helped me. Because I know I have this community in Chicago of young people who have been through things, because I know they've been through these things.
Mhm.
Like, so, and it came out like I was sexually assaulted a few times as a kid, that I were moments that I just kind of stored away in the back of my
Mhm.
head and never processed. And a couple of times it was women, and there were a couple of times when men tried. And that's when my violent streak started, because I
Mm.
beat them up. And for a
How
while
old are you?
there,
If you can.
that point, one of the incidents I was probably 7, and the other one I was like 9.
Mm.
And one instance, like, a boy tried touching me in a pool, and I almost drowned him.
Wow.
So I had this kind of violence will get me through things mindset through middle school. And then when I got into high school and I realized that I didn't want to be the kid that's always suspended,
Yeah.
I, instead of hanging out with the some of the people that I was hanging out with that got into that kind of violence, that's when I got into punk rock.
Mm.
And it was a violent scene, but it was controlled. We'd do mosh pits, but everyone picked each other up. Some of the people that I knew growing up were going to jail, going to
Mm.
juvie. So all of this kind of saved my life. And, I learned a lot about organizing through punk rock. I was on a street team where I went out to shows, and handed out cassettes and talked to people about what kind of music they like, and I would, bring it back to the record label, and we'd have meetings, and that's a lot of how I handle my, at least the tasking during organizing. But really my bottom line on all this is that I feel like a lot of people are holding trauma. I think, this is my theory, but I think all women are, because
Oh
just
yeah.
the society being as it is and as violent as it is in its way of enforcing gender roles. I think all women are. I think all Black people are.
Mhm.
I think that all poor people are. And some people have what would be looked at called complex PTSD, meaning um, sustained traumas over a course of time. And what that does is it literally reroutes your brain. And this has happened. This is, what I basically have to live my whole life with a brain that doesn't work like most people's, but I'm now learning all these skills to reintegrate myself in society. I was pretty much a hermit during most of the pandemic. Just one thing I want to recommend this book, Trauma and Recovery, and I want to read one line from it. And I think you're gonna love this, Nomiki.
Okay.
The systematic study of psychological trauma depends on the support of a political movement. So I think we need to integrate this into our organizing. We have to do trauma-informed organizing. And this is how we're going to build bridges between people, because I'm just connecting so much with mentally ill people who want to create a better world.
Yeah.
And because of maybe depression, anxiety, they can't make it out to meetings. They can't knock on a door. I want to help people get over that.
I'm so happy you bring this up because, well, first off, I commend you for speaking out about this, because it's very hard to talk about what you're facing personally. At least for me, it's very hard in a public forum, partly because sometimes there's this fear of being re-traumatized. It could happen, very well could happen, and then there's the fear attached to it, and it's our body's way of I guess protecting ourselves, because we do live in this space that's extremely motivated by toxic behavior and attacks, and each bit of those, those moments, like you say something publicly, you can get attacked, and it affects you. And then in a form that's actually a tool used to oppress people. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but oppressing people, the receiving end of that is trauma. And if you receive trauma over and over and over through oppression, whether it's physical oppression, verbal oppression, psychological oppression, all of these things are tools to keep people down. And, we talk about supremacy, and it's like there is supremacy online too. And if every time you say something, you're getting attacked from it in a very, very non-logic, debate way, it has an effect. And little by little by little by little, that person could go through many different things, whether it's not speaking out anymore, not tweeting as much anymore, not doing as many clips, not writing as much. It is a tool by the status quo, by those in power, to keep people quiet. And so I think it's really, really powerful that you have used your space, your audience, your privilege, your whatever, all the things. We all have a form, not all of us, but there's enough privilege to go around in our circles, I should say, that even the most oppressed have, if we're able to get on here and speak out, that's a form of privilege. And so I really commend you for doing that, and for taking care of yourself and really speaking out.
Yeah, one thing though I do want to say, you mentioned privilege, is the fact that I do recognize that coming out, like it's like a double-edged sword. Like, I think there's more impact me talking about being a sexual assault survivor as a man, because it's just, we don't come out about that. But at the same time, because I can walk the streets and I'm a big dude, I'm a 210-pound power lifter. Like, if someone doesn't like what I have to say, they're not going to come at me physically. So, I really commend you and all the women that are doing this kind of work, being very visible and being very controversial and spicy, and then going out in the world, because there's some bad people.
And they'll come at you in different ways too. I mean, this is something I plan to talk about a little bit more in my own space, because it's hard when you talk about these things. There's a potential of you going through the trauma again yourself.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people and that's why it's really important to have if you can afford to, and there's lots of, they don't sponsor our show, but there's like lots of places that have affordable, like BetterHelp.com has a sliding scale. Hopefully at one point we'll have therapy in this country. In New York City, they have you have access to therapy if you go to the website. Just Google like New York City free therapy. The government, we passed that. We have that in the city. But if you were not in a position to do so, I mean, it's why it's not just about talking about it. It's like talking about it with the support structures, because there's the
Yes.
potential you might actually re-traumatize yourself, and it could have an effect. It's been so many years now that I'm fully able to talk about this in a safer space. But I had an eating disorder, like so many other women
And I
have.
had one too in middle
And
school. We could talk about that because that has key links to other addictive things that I've had in my life, and I discovered that through therapy. And
yeah, I mean, you
unlocking
discover
that has
why.
helped me, like,
Yeah.
do some, take care of myself when I wasn't really happy with myself even.
It's I mean, for the time period that I had it, and it took many different forms and iterations, um, you kind of go about it in secrecy, and I didn't really have the support system, and I never really got treatment for it. And it like it was it obviously, not obviously, but it was a symptom of something else that was happening in my life. And as you had mentioned, but maybe like 6 or 7 years later, I had become friends with somebody, or I had been friends with her for a while, but she came to me and shared how she had had an eating disorder, which was visible. It was visible. And I had shared with her that, I had once had it, and I had, hopefully moved past it. And I've definitely moved past it since. But, I had moved past it. And she had then seen me as somebody who she could talk about it with.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself in a position where I couldn't handle it. It was too much. It was too much. Being around her, it wasn't triggering. It just sent me into like a really hard space. And so to fast forward, like here we are in movements. When you're on the front lines, when you're fighting a movement, you're around a lot of people who are dealing with a lot. And if you're dealing with in spaces where folks have been oppressed, or have been silenced, or have been physically abused, sexually abused, all these different things, and they're in the movement space, which is a fighting space, there's very little real support. Let's be real.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a lot happening, and then you're like all online. And so I think, like, the kind of work that Joshua Kahn Russell does, where he actually works with organizations that are in these spaces, on this, on trauma, on working through, how folks interact with each other in spaces, because we're not always the best humans, where we lash out. We have a moment, and you don't have a filter on your phone that stops you and says, mental health check, how are we feeling today? And you find yourself like, like you said, you're on a social media diet. I am definitely on one. We'll get to that later, but like, I feel like the algorithms, not only are they fueling hate and you make money off of it, but they're also just pushing people to do the most insane things. Like, I tweeted this thing out about this TikToker who shared a bunch of information on climate change, which is all great, but I made a joke being like, more people don't need to be on these sites, as Bernie Sanders said. Or if they do, it's not about convincing people that climate change exists. We've been doing that for the last 30 years. How has that worked out? That is responding to the Republicans. It's about giving people the tools and strategy necessary to actually affect change. But the way we learn by watching. And so if the way that we think we're contributing is by doing these things to explain climate change, I'm sorry, like, Al Gore won an effing Nobel Prize and like couldn't even get people to. But I mean, but you get what I point here, right? Like,
yeah, I can actually tell a bit of a story.
wait, can I take a quick break? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely,
I just realized what time it is. All right, guys, that was a good teaser, wasn't it? We're gonna move over exclusively to Rokfin. We have Kenzo Shibata here, who is the host of the Kenzo Shibata Show, having a really thoughtful conversation, as you guys have seen. Go join us at rokfin.com/Nomiki. Information's down at the bottom here. It is an exclusive this is what we do on Tuesday nights: exclusive interviews, exclusive conversations, live on Rokfin. Rokfin, just for folks who are wondering, it is different than Patreon. Patreon, we share all of our episodes, all of our audio and extras, and you get swag and all the other stuff too. Why do we go to Rokfin? Partly because I'm going to be honest, pretty much everybody in this space on the left is not making what they were making a year ago on YouTube. And it has affected the bottom line. And so you have to diversify. We have to actually, it's called, I don't know if you guys know, there's this thing called capitalism. And I
hate
personally don't like to be exploited when I'm trying to share really thoughtful insights from our amazing guests. So I know it's hard subscribing to everything. And but if you can join us, please do. I really encourage you to do so. And hopefully we'll get Kenzo up on Rokfin as well, so we can create more of a diverse left ecosystem.
Love it.
All right, guys, we'll see you over at Rokfin in like 2 seconds. And those on Rokfin, stay around.